Games with a freely rotating camera like this will often allow you to reset the camera behind the player with a single click. And doing this is simple once you understand the rotations at work. So for instance, there are two rotations here. There is the actor's rotation, and then there is a camera's rotation. The camera's rotation is taken from the controller's rotation, which receives its input from the mouse movements. So if you want to return the camera to look behind the player, in other words, for its rotation to be the same as the actor's rotation, you actually need to change the controller's rotation and not the camera's rotation directly. So today we'll have a look at how you can do that. So in the default third-person template, how do we know that the camera's rotation is the same as the controller's rotation? If we open the third-person character that we're using in the blueprint, if we go to the camera boom and then we scroll down, we'll find that in the camera settings, by default, it is set to use the pawn control rotation. And if you read it, it will say it will use the control rotation for this. So we know that the camera boom to which the camera is attached is getting its rotation from the controller. We also know from the camera input in the third person that whenever we move the mouse left and right and up and down, we are adding either controller yaw input or controller pitch input. So that's how the input is going into the controller, which changes the controller rotation and then the camera's rotation. So if we wanted to return the camera to look behind the player with a single click and do it smoothly, we can do it like this. So we can first of all find a key that we will press to trigger this. And we'll just use a debug key this time. There's lots of ways of doing this. We could use timelines or timers, but we'll find the simplest way with a custom event. So we'll create a custom event and we'll say reset camera. And from here, we'll need to set the control rotation to be the same as the actor's rotation. So first thing, to get the control rotation, there's two ways of doing that. You can get that from the player controller. Control rotation. Within the character, there's a built-in get control rotation as well. So you can just say get control rotation, and you can get that without the player controller. We'll also want to get the actor's rotation, because this is the rotation we want to end up with. We can then do an rinterp, so this will smoothly interpolate the rotators from the current, which is the control rotation, to the desired target, which is the actor's rotation. We can get the delta from the get world delta seconds, and then the interp speed will decide how fast it happens. So 0 would be instant. Otherwise, the higher the number, the faster it will happen. So maybe we'll just go for something like 4. In order to set the control rotation, you do need the controller, the player controller. So from the player controller, you can drag off and say set control rotation. And that rotation will be this interpolated value. We then just need to check whether the two things are equal. So we can get another copy of those, and we can do an equal equals to check the two rotators. We'll give it a tolerance, so because we know it will never be exact straight away, and then we can just branch on this. If it's false, we'll want to carry on interpolating. So we'll put just a little delay in there, maybe a delay until the next tick, and then we will call our function again, reset camera. If it's true, we don't need to do anything. And then we can, on that function that we've created, just hook that up here. And then on the debug key, we just need to, when we press it, call reset camera. When we go back to our level and play, and we now press 1, we should smoothly interpolate straight back. See, the one issue is we don't want to be interpolating and moving the camera at the same time. We end up with a slightly janky movement. So we can easily deal with that by ignoring the move input. So when we press the key, we can get the player controller, and there is a function here called set ignore look input. Now we can click that to true, so it will stop any look input, in other words, the mouse input going to the control rotation and therefore the camera when we press play. When we press the debug key to reset, and at the end we can just say get player controller again. And the thing to remember is that these are stacked, so as long as you call it once, you just have to uncall it once. Otherwise you have to uncall it as many times as you called it. But there is another option, that is reset ignore look input. So no matter how many times you call it, this will reset it, which means that the control rotation will change with the mouse movements. So now if I go back and I play, so the camera will not move when it's doing the animation, and then when I return control, I can then move it again, and that prevents that janky movement. So I hope that explains how you can reset the camera behind your actor in a very simple way. And again, obviously if you make any changes to your camera boom, changing the socket offset and so on, that might require some compensation in how you do the movements. But with the default third person, it works very simply just using this approach. So I hope that helps.